Under the late afternoon sun of Caracas, the crowd in Bolivar Square gathers, waving flags and chanting patriotic songs. The atmosphere is charged but peaceful, a show of unity and defiance. Cameras pan across a sea of red shirts and Venezuelan flags fluttering in the breeze. On the main stage stands President Nicolás Maduro, his voice booming through loudspeakers as he delivers a plea that resonates beyond Venezuela's borders. No crazy war, please. Venezuela wants peace. The words echo through the square, carried by loudspeakers and broadcast nationwide. Maduro's tone is both emotional and deliberate, a mix of warning and hope. He calls on Washington to reconsider its recent military movements, describing them as a dangerous provocation that threatens to drag the entire region into confrontation. He reminds his audience and the watching world that Venezuela, despite its economic struggles, seeks stability, not escalation. We are your brothers and sisters. Workers, no to war, yes to peace, forever, 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 he says, switching between Spanish and English to ensure his message is unmistakably clear. The Venezuelan president's remarks come amid rising tensions following the United States' deployment of naval assets, including destroyers, a submarine and special forces ships, to international waters in the Caribbean. Washington insists the move is part of a broader security presence, but in Caracas, the decision has been interpreted as a show of force. State television captures close-ups of Maduro's gestures, his hands raised as he repeats rhythmically, no to war, yes to peace, yes to peace. His tone turns almost pastoral, blending political rhetoric with a populist performance meant to connect emotionally with ordinary Venezuelans. He pauses for applause, then with a grin adds a dose of humor. This is called Tarzanese language, he says, referring to the famous jungle character. If translated into Spanish, it would be no war, no want war, no to the war of the crazy ones, no to madness, to war. The crowd bursts into laughter, clapping and waving flags. But beneath the humor lies tension. Maduro's government has repeatedly accused Washington of plotting to destabilize Venezuela, claiming that U.S. military movements near the Caribbean coast amount to intimidation. Analysts say the Venezuelan leadership has long used external threats to rally domestic support, yet the tone of this plea feels more urgent. Over the past few months, the Caribbean Sea has become a theater of strategic maneuvering. The United States maintains that its deployments are aimed at counter-narcotics operations and the protection of maritime trade routes. Venezuela, however, views the build-up as a potential prelude to aggression, particularly after Washington imposed another round of sanctions targeting the state oil company PDVSA and senior Venezuelan officials. In his address, Maduro insists that Venezuela poses no threat to anyone. He stresses that his country's priorities lie in rebuilding its economy, expanding agricultural production, and restoring international relations damaged by years of sanctions and political isolation. We are a people of peace, he declares, a people that loves life, work, and justice. We do not seek confrontation, we seek respect. The crowd erupts again, chanting, Venezuela quiere paz. Venezuela wants peace. Television footage cuts to military personnel in ceremonial uniforms standing at attention, their expressions solemn. Behind them, the Venezuelan tricolour flutters against a backdrop of tropical mountains. For Maduro, this speech serves a dual purpose, both a message to his people and a warning to Washington. We will defend our sovereignty with dignity, he says, but we will never be the ones to start a war. His voice sharpens as he adds, we do not want war. Not a crazy war, not a war of arrogance, not a war of madness. Venezuela wants peace and will fight for peace. Observers note that his language, emotional, repetitive, and often symbolic, mirrors his strategy of portraying Venezuela as a victim of global injustice. The crazy war phrase becomes a rhetorical centerpiece, encapsulating his argument that regional peace is being jeopardized by foreign military adventurism. At one point, Maduro turns to the camera and addresses the US directly. Brothers and sisters of the United States, do not allow the warmongers to lead you into madness. Look to Latin America. We want cooperation, not confrontation. His tone softens, as if appealing over the heads of policymakers to the American public itself. As he speaks, the broadcast cuts to images of Venezuelan naval vessels patrolling coastal waters, a subtle reminder that while Caracas preaches peace, it remains vigilant. The narration describes how the Venezuelan armed forces have been placed on alert to ensure national sovereignty. Inside the presidential palace, aides monitor global reactions. State media reports that the United States has not formally commented on Maduro's remarks, though Pentagon sources maintain that their ships operate lawfully in international waters. Independent analysts point out that while US deployments may not signal imminent action, the optics of warships near Venezuela's maritime zone inevitably stoke unease. Later that evening, Maduro's words dominate headlines across Latin America. Supporters hail his speech as a call for sanity in a time of provocation. Critics, however, dismiss it as theatrics, another attempt to frame Venezuela as a besieged nation while diverting attention from domestic troubles. In Caracas's barrios, where the effects of inflation and shortages are felt daily, residents discuss the president's plea with mixed feelings. Some express pride that Venezuela stands tall against empire, while others question whether confrontation with Washington is truly avoidable. "We want peace, yes," says one street vendor, "but we also want food and medicine." As the evening turns to night, the city lights shimmer on the horizon, and Maduro's final words linger in the air. Peace forever, peace for our children, peace for humanity. Analysts suggest the timing of his remarks, coinciding with the US military buildup, is no coincidence. Venezuela's leadership appears eager to reclaim control of the narrative, portraying itself as the guardian of regional stability. Internationally, Maduro's statement draws varied responses. Cuba and Nicaragua quickly voiced solidarity, condemning the US presence as imperialist intimidation. Meanwhile, Brazil and Colombia issue cautious calls for restraint, urging dialogue and adherence to international law. At the United Nations, diplomats privately acknowledge concern that even symbolic military gestures in the Caribbean could spiral into broader confrontation. The Venezuelan Foreign Ministry sends letters to allied nations requesting mediation and reaffirming its commitment to peaceful resolution of disputes. For much of the next day, Venezuelan media replay the speech in loops, the chant of "No war, yes peace" turning into a slogan, printed on banners and trending across social media. Hashtags like #Paz para Venezuela and #No Crazy War flood local timelines. In Washington, analysts debate whether Maduro's plea is genuine diplomacy or strategic deflection. Some note that Venezuela has been quietly strengthening ties with Russia and Iran, nations also at odds with the United States. The sight of Russian-made Sukhoi jets flying over Caracas during national parades underscores the deep military links that continue despite sanctions. Yet, for all the posturing, Maduro's central message remains consistent. Venezuela, he insists, will not be provoked into conflict. His words, part sermon and part political theatre, tap into a deeper Latin American sentiment, the belief that the region has suffered enough from wars it did not start. As the broadcast closes, a narrator summarizing the president's remarks says softly, "Venezuela extends a hand of peace, not a fist of war." The camera lingers on Maduro, his right hand raised in a gesture of salute as the national anthem swells. For Venezuelans watching from their homes, the message is clear. Their leader is drawing a moral line in the sand, imploring the world to avoid another unnecessary confrontation. For Washington, the question remains whether that message will be seen as sincerity or strategy. In the days to come, diplomats will trade statements, analysts will pass Maduro's words, and the Caribbean will remain crowded with warships. But in Caracas, the president's plea continues to echo through loudspeakers, rallies, and living rooms alike. No crazy war, please. Venezuela wants peace forever.